Cicero the Dragonborn, a Skyrim story. Chapter 2. The silence has been broken. Cicero danced up the last of the steps to High Hrothgar, sliding his daggers into his sleeves. Of course, he now had a shiny steel sword as well, and some nice orcish arrows for his nice orcish bow to kill things with, thanks to an impromptu visit to Ivarstead Barrow. But he still liked his dual daggers for maximum bloodletting. He'd also learnt a new shout too, and the dragon he'd met in the Helgen Pass had provided the soul to fuel it. Cicero's getting good at this Dovahkian business, yes, Cicero murmured to himself. It was almost as much fun as slitting throats, and if the gems and septims he'd acquired from Shroudhearth Barrow, not to mention the sapphire claw the grateful innkeeper had rewarded him with, were anything to go by, much more profitable. Cicero has money now, yes, and the ability to shout beasts into submission, yes. Perhaps Cicero shall buy a house for himself and the mother, wear fine clothes like a jarl, Cicero purred, eminently pleased with himself so far. Cicero shall have a big castle like Dragon's Reach, yes he shall, and a throne next to the mother, and he shall learn shouting and magic, and nice Delphine can come to visit. Yes, Delphine has been nice to poor Cicero and mother. We like Delphine. She can come and stay with us whenever she wants, help us with stabbing people. Of course, both Delphine and the mother were far away in Riverwood, and Cicero was on his own, halfway up a mountain. Gone were the warmth and cheer of the Villimere Inn, where Wilhelm the innkeeper had been kind and grateful and treated poor Cicero as if he was normal, and where Pretty Linley had laughed and danced with him after he told her lute sounded like bells in his head. Now, however, he was staring at the forbidding bulk of the monastery with its firm black doors, with the snow starting to fall and no sign of life inside. Cicero shivered, wondering if the mother had really meant for him to come here. "This is no place for jesters," Cicero muttered. "There is no laughter or singing here, no pretty bard or warm black briar mead. Nothing for Cicero, no. Just cold comfort and loneliness." Cicero has been lonely enough. He put his hands in his pockets, and his fingers curled around the horn Delphine had insisted he bring. "It belonged to their founder," she'd explained. "They'll want you to fetch it. It'll save so much time if you can just hand it to them. All I ask is that you don't tell them you know me. Do they not like you?" Cicero had asked, wide-eyed. Does kind-hearted Delphine want her loyal Cicero to kill them for her? Shave their grey beards off and keep going? "No," Delphine had cried. No. Just go in, give them the horn, find out what you can about being Dragonborn, and ask if they know anything about the dragons coming back." Cicero steeled himself and walked up to the door. Kind Delphine was hoping for answers about dragons. So loyal Cicero would go in, hand the horn over, and ask about dragons. Job done. It was just that most of Cicero's previous jobs rarely involved actually having to talk to the target. Opening the door, he walked in before he could lose his nerve, slinking into the shadows out of habit. Maybe if he could hide and watch first, it would help. There were 4 of them, grouped in the main hallway, standing around with arms folded or kneeling on the floor in contemplation. All men, all appropriately grey-bearded, clad in hooded black robes that hid their faces. They didn't seem to have noticed him yet. Licking his lips, his mouth suddenly unaccountably dry, Cicero crept forward, hoping to circle around behind them. Such a quiet, dismal place. Cicero was half tempted, despite his nerves, to burst out singing and dancing, liven things up a bit. Sithis knew this place could do with it, and yet something inside was stopping him, some feeling that it just wouldn't be right. One of the greybeards had got to his feet and was staring at the door, frowning. Clearly he'd heard the door open but could not see Cicero anywhere. Cicero smiled, repressing a giggle. No one saw Cicero if he did not wish them to. Then the greybeard whispered, "Las near." Cicero felt a chill go down his spine as he heard the words, a little shiver of power, as if a dragon had stealthily landed behind him and was breathing down the back of his neck. Slowly, impossibly, the greybeard turned around and stared right at Cicero. "Welcome, stranger," said the greybeard calmly. "Step forward into the light and greet us as is proper for a guest. We do not receive many visitors here, but we have not forgotten the laws of hospitality. No guest under our roof will suffer harm at our hands. But be wary, stranger. For if it is harm you mean to do us, you will not find us easy prey. You can see Cicero? Cicero managed to force the words out. I know where you are, stranger, came the reply. I am brother Arngeir of the Greybeards. Do you have business with us, friend? Shaking, Cicero got to his feet and stepped forward, feeling immensely vulnerable, shorn of both his sneaking skills and his usual ability to caper his way out of things. Was this what sanity felt like? He couldn't remember, but if it was, he knew he didn't like it. Cicero is here at your request, kind sirs, said Cicero quietly. Cicero is Dragonborn. Cicero was told by everyone he needed to come to High Hrothgar. So Cicero has come, but Cicero does not know what to do next. Arngeir's eyes widened a fraction, but his stance relaxed. So you are the Davakian, he said, marveling. And you have come at last. Greetings then, Davakian. Be welcome. The other three Greybeards got to their feet and bowed. Cicero, not sure exactly how to respond, bowed in turn, before giving in and dancing a little on the spot jig. Cicero thanks you, he giggled. Cicero does not normally get such treatment when he sneaks into people's houses, no. There is no need for the Dragonborn to sneak into High Hrothgar, said Arngeir with a touch of reproof. If, that is, you truly are the Dragonborn of legend. Behind him, Brother Einarth signed to Borri that he personally suspected otherwise. Borri just nodded. Cicero has killed dragons, said Cicero, pulling his shoulders back to stand at his full height. Not that that was really saying a lot, especially not in front of 4 Nords who all topped 6 foot in height. Still, he would do what he could with what he had. Cicero has shot them and stabbed them and brought them down. Nasty, scaly flying things. Cicero has taken their souls, and Cicero can shout now. But he mostly doesn't. Cicero has manners. Cicero was taught not to raise his voice. Cicero is not a noisy, brutish Nord, no. The dragon blood is not limited to Nords, although few have been able to chart its progress, said Arngeir. With no dragons, those who might have been Dragonborn could never come into their own. But they have come, and so have you. Come, Cicero Dragonborn, overcome your reticence and show your voice. My voice. Cicero had not realized he would be required to actually prove anything. But Cicero only knows 2 shouts, and one only works on beasts. Use the other then, said Arngeir patiently. I assure you, do not fear harming us. We are all capable of withstanding the power of the Thu'um. Cicero's first impulse was to gabble about how Cicero would never harm kind Arngeir. Not even if the mother told him to, not that she would, she had sent him here to. Well, Cicero was not sure, but there must be a reason. Now he was here, he was beginning to realize that Arngeir did not seem like the type to have enemies he wanted killing. Indeed, from the moment he'd crept through the door, he'd felt something, some power. He didn't know what, but the souls of the dragons he'd killed, somehow they had left a mark, and here that mark was becoming just a bit harder to ignore. As if there was an actual dragon in his head, and it was watching him, smiling at him, laughing at him with those big teeth. Cicero's fingers flexed on his dagger hilts, and he whirled round, half expecting to see one watching from a corner. But there was nothing there. No dragon, Cicero whispered. No dragon there, only the one in poor Cicero's head. And now they want Cicero to speak like one, bringing the dragon closer. Oh, Arngeir does not know what he asks. But Cicero will do it. Cicero will do it to prove himself, to get answers for kind Delphine. Fame. The shout rippled out, and as Cicero felt his body fade, he felt the power course through him. Fierce dragon power, feeling for all the world like a dragon had wrapped itself around him, wings shielding him as claws gently gripped his flesh. Once again, he shivered. Fragile, insignificant Cicero had never felt so vulnerable as when he used his shouts. Vulnerable and powerful at the same time. Because when he shouted, he didn't feel like Cicero anymore. Arngeir watched, approving, one with the Thu'um, who we did not teach. Such a thing has not happened in centuries, if not longer. Arngeir is pleased. Cicero did well, Cicero rasped, wishing his body would hurry up and solidify, and that the strange urge to stretch wings he didn't have and leap off a cliff to soar on the breeze would go away. Cicero preferred the ground, thank you very much. You did well indeed, said Arngeir, impressed despite his misgivings about this strange new Dragonborn. Come, we shall teach you new shouts. Let us see if you can truly learn the tongue of the dragons." Cicero actually squealed at this, dancing on the spot and hastening over to where a greybeard called Wulfgar had cast a new thuum on the floor for him to learn. Two, in fact, fuss and row of a shout called Unrelenting Force. Cicero wasted no time in learning them both and preened happily, as Arngeir exclaimed how remarkable it was for him to have picked this up so fast when it normally took years of training. Next, it was out in the courtyard where Cicero got taught how to use the first word of Whirlwind's sprint. He used it once to get through the gates before they shut, and then again to travel to the other end of the courtyard, and be back, and again, until Arngeir finally resorted to Unrelenting Force to get him to stand still. Cicero was enjoying that one, Cicero pouted. Cicero has so few pleasures in life. It had been almost like flying, except without the ground disappearing from under you. If Cicero had been given more to introspection, or indeed if his mind hadn't been riven with the cracks and scars of 1,000 nights of loneliness, he might have been concerned at how accustomed he was becoming to the draconian presence that drifted into his mind as he shouted. However, this was Cicero, and his attention span had never been great when he'd been sane. Madness had not helped. "Undoubtedly," said Arngeir, hints of strain creeping into his outwardly patient demeanor. "However, there is one final task you will need to complete before we can proclaim you Dragonborn. A test of skill, bravery, and cunning we will need you to perform." "Cicero has all three of those," Cicero said, doing a forward roll that ended in him leaping to his feet with a bow and a flourish. "What does nice Master Arngeir wish Cicero to do for him?" "Simply tell humble Cicero who he wishes to die, and it shall be done." "Die? No one is to die, young Cicero," said Arngeir, folding his arms as he began to wonder just who on earth this new Dragonborn had been before. The way of the voice is a way of peace, not to be used as some assassin's tool. Cicero froze mid-caper. No killing? Cicero is very disappointed. So if he has no enemies needing their belly opened, what does Master Arngeir need? Simply to go to the Eustengrav ruins in Hjalmarch and retrieve the horn of Jürgen Windcaller, said Arngeir. Nothing more than that. I imagine it may be dangerous, and you may need to fight, but you won't need to resort to cold-blooded murder. Stay with the way of the voice, Cicero. Meditate, ponder the words of power, unlock your potential, but there is no need to kill. You can do better than that. Cicero opened his mouth to protest that no, he really couldn't. He'd spent most of his years training to be the best, the very best, at precisely that, and had no intention of changing jobs now. But something told him Arngeir would not understand. Arngeir was no client of the Dark Brotherhood. Cicero could see that now. So why in the name of Sithis had the Night Mother called him here? He did not know, but they wanted the horn of Jürgen Windcaller. So the horn of Jürgen Windcaller he would give them. Is this the horn of Jürgen Windcaller that Arngeir is after? Said Cicero, producing it and handing it over. Cicero found it while he was traveling in Hjalmarch. It looks like it could be. Stunned, Arngeir took it from him, showing it to his equally amazed brothers. This is it, Cicero, the very thing. But how did you know? Arngeir stopped, eyes narrowing, and a dawning realization coming into them. Delphine, you spoke of knowing a Delphine earlier. It is a common enough Breton name, I thought nothing of it. But you spoke of her wanting answers. And there is one Delphine out there who knows of us, knows of the Dragonborn, and would know we'd ask you for this. Delphine of the Blades. Cicero, are you working with the Blades? The truth now, Dragonborn. Blades? Blades? Cicero squeaked, inwardly cursing himself for being a fool and letting Delphine's name slip. Cicero knows nothing of the Blades, except the shiny ones he carries with him. Cicero knows a Delphine, but she's... Cicero managed to stop himself saying part of the Dark Brotherhood in time, because not only would betraying her and his order make things worse, a certain dark thought was creeping into his mind. It was slowly occurring to him that possibly, just possibly, he'd been mistaken. Not even entirely mistaken, lied to. Delphine had never at any point said she was from the Brotherhood. Sure, she'd talked like she'd known more about them than any non-member should. She'd known who the Night Mother was without Cicero having to say a word, and she'd been friendly, so very friendly and helpful to lonely Cicero. He'd assumed she was a fellow assassin, especially when he'd seen her fight, but she had never actually said the words herself, And now here was Arngeir claiming she was a blade, one of the hated blades who had protected the imperial family and claimed the lives of so many of his brethren over the years. A blade. He'd been tricked and duped by a blade to who knew what end, and she had the mother. Oh, Sithis, she had the mother. He had to get back there. He had to. A friend, said Cicero, the strange dragon calm coming back and letting him speak the words even as they left a taste in his mouth. Delphine has been a kind and helpful friend who is caring for Cicero's dear mother while Cicero comes here. So she knew you would want the horn from hard-working Cicero and helped him find it first. What of it? What of it? Arngeir snapped, his calm falling for the first time since Cicero had seen him. The blades are warriors, Cicero, creatures of war who care little for peace because in a world of peace, there would be little need of them. They seek to use the voice and the Dragonborn that wields it for their own ends. For war and rulership, of dominion over others. They took the first Dragonborns and used them to forge an empire. And look how things have come to pass. There have been good emperors and times of peace, but there have also been terrible ones and destructive wars. Cicero, if you join the blades, they will make of you a weapon terrible and deadly, a weapon to rule the world and become worse than any dragon. Cicero, I beg you to reconsider your alliance with her. Collect your mother, put distance between you and Delphine, and join us in following the way of the voice. Peace, not war, Dragonborn. A vision appeared in Cicero's mind of collecting the Night Mother, bringing her here somehow, installing her in a small bedroom here, laying down his weapons and spending the rest of his life here, learning the Thum, meditating and learning peace, lulling the dragon in his blood to sleep. There was a temptation there, he could see. No more fear, no more worry, just peace for the rest of his life. It was tempting. It was also deathly boring. Had he not spent enough time trapped in a small, dark room with the mother? Had he not had enough of enforced peace, unable to hunt, unable to kill? Arngeir, for all his kind words, was too late. Cicero did not need forging into a weapon. Cicero already was one. Plenty of time for meditating in the darkness when he was dead. Still, there was one promise he could make. Cicero sees the truth in wise Arngeir's words, he said, bowing. Cicero will cut off all ties to lying Delphine and take his mother to a safer place. Then maybe one day Cicero will see kind Arngeir again. Arngeir relaxed, the ghost of a smile playing on his face. That is well, Dragonborn. I do not expect you to join fully our life of contemplation. The dragon blood does not easily permit a life of rest and quiet. But cutting ties with the blades is a good start. Be your own man, Dragonborn, and choose your own path. Cicero will do that, Cicero promised as he followed them inside. Cicero will cut his ties and go his own way. Cicero would indeed. Cicero would cut other things too. Delphine woke with a start, eyes slowly adjusting to the gloom around her. Something was wrong, though. It was quiet, too quiet for the only inn in Riverwood, even in the early hours of the morning. She was lying face down, and it seemed someone was tying her hands behind her back. She tried to move, but her captor pulled the knots tight and pounced, his full weight pressing her down, and a knee shoved between her legs, making her cry out. "Works better on men, that one," a voice murmured from just behind her right ear. But no matter, they all squealed the same in the end. Delphine felt her heart sink. Cicero, who had gone off to the Greybeards, all kind Delphine this and pretty Delphine that. And Cicero would do anything his generous Delphine wanted of him, and did she wish him to kill anyone today? And now he was back and assaulting her in her bed? Either this was some new madness, or the game was up and he'd found out from the Greybeards who she really was. Neither was good news. "Cicero," she began. "What is this? What do you want?" She felt the cold metal tip of a dagger press into her cheek. Cicero went to the Greybeards as Delphine asked, and Cicero got answers, came the response. They know very little about why the dragons are coming back, but they knew much indeed about the Thum and about the blades. Delphine winced, so he knew. This was not good at all. The sworn imperial bodyguards and the Dark Brotherhood had had an uneasy relationship at best. "Cicero is not pleased at being lied to," Cicero continued, pushing the knife in a little deeper. Delphine gasped as it broke the skin and blood trickled down her cheek. "So Cicero has brought a blade for a blade. and Cicero will be encouraging them to get friendlier as night goes on. Cicero has locked the door of your inn and drugged your bartender friend, so we will have plenty of privacy. Delphine closed her eyes. She could get through this. Just until morning, until someone found the inn locked and realized something was up. She'd been trained to withstand torture and interrogation, and honestly, this wasn't the first time this sort of thing had happened. She would survive this. Of course, previous interrogators had been mostly sane. "Cicero, I don't mean you any harm," said Delphine, hoping he'd at least listen. "I don't care that you're in the Dark Brotherhood. If you want to keep on carrying out contract killings, I don't care as long as you don't get arrested or killed in the process. You're Dragonborn, Cicero, and before the Dragonborns became emperors, the Blades were sworn to protect and serve the Dragonborn simply because they were the ultimate dragon slayers. I can do the same for you, but you need to trust me and let me go." "Trust?" Cicero spat, twisting his dagger. Cicero has very little time left for trust. Cicero trusts his brothers and sisters in darkness, but they are all gone, and Delphine is not a true sister. Delphine has other brothers and sisters, and they hunted Cicero's family. "Not anymore," Delphine growled. "The Thalmor killed most of my comrades. I'm the last Cicero, same as you're almost the last of your dark family. I'm not sworn to protect the Emperor anymore. That role has moved on. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier, but you're not the only one with enemies. I don't have a lot of time left for trust either." "Does Cicero look like a Thalmor to you?" said Cicero scornfully. "No," Delphine admitted, "but I would not put it past the Thalmor to hire the Dark Brotherhood to track me down either." "Thalmor would not hire Dark Brotherhood," said Cicero, laughing. "Sharp-eared Thalmor do their own killing. They have no need of us." He leaned closer into Delphine, and to her horror, licked up the blood that was still trickling down her cheek. "Cicero can do his own killing too, even dragons. Cicero has his own blades, and they do not lie to him or let him down. Cicero does not need Delphine. Damn." Truth was, he might even be right. He could survive quite well on his own, or perhaps he'd go in search of that other Dark Brotherhood cell. There was no shortage of work for a freelance assassin for hire if Cicero chose to go down that route. But what use was a blade with no Dragonborn to protect? However, Delphine could thank the divines for one trump card. Cicero was no ordinary mercenary killer, but part of the Brotherhood, and the Dark Brotherhood was nothing without the Night Mother and her listener. "You need me more than you think, child of the Night Mother." Delphine gasped, close to hysteria. "She spoke to me, Cicero, said I had the touch of Sithis on me, said I'd been alone in the dark so long, I'd become part of it. She named me Listener, Cicero." "Listener? Listener?" Cicero screeched. The knife was gone, and Cicero had leapt off her, prancing about the room as if possessed. How can you be Listener? You are not even in the Brotherhood." All these lonely years, Cicero has cared for the mother, loved her, protected her, killed those who would disrespect and defile her, given everything up for her, and nothing, not a word has she said to him. Not until Cicero killed that dragon, and even that, it turns out, was not her but the Greybeards. A cold feeling of dread settled on Delphine's heart. "Cicero, please, tell me you didn't kill the Greybeards." Cicero laughed bitterly. No, Cicero did not kill kind Angir and his brothers. Cicero will not be joining them at that cold monastery. Cicero prefers life and music and dancing, and good cheer too much for that. But Cicero did promise to cut ties with the Blades, and Cicero shall keep his promise. His eyes flashed in the gloom as a cold, cruel smile crossed his face. "Cicero has been a fool. Cicero does not believe you are really Listener. Delphine is playing a joke on gullible Cicero, claiming to be Listener so he'll do as she says. No more." He flicked his daggers into his hands and advanced, face twisted in hate. Delphine's heart began to race, and for possibly the first time since her youth, began to truly panic. "No, it's true, Cicero. Please believe me. She gave me a contract," Delphine begged, tongue running away with her. "I'm to go with you to the ruins at Vollenrud, where we're to meet a contact called Armand Mortier. She said we're to accept his gold, eliminate the target, so begins a contract bound in blood. And she said the binding words, 'Darkness rises when silence dies.'" She stared at Cicero, praying to someone, anyone, any of the divines, even the Daedra, even the Dreadlord Sithis himself. to spare her this time. Don't let him kill me, Sithis. I'll serve you as your listener if you let me live this time. Somewhere in the distance, she seemed to hear laughter and a voice saying, "Done." Before she could even wonder who she'd just pledged her soul to, she realized it was working. Cicero was slowly lowering his daggers in wonder, sheathing them. "Those are the words," he whispered. "Those are the words that the Night Mother seals her contracts with, calls her listener with. Words known only to the speakers, and to Cicero as keeper, so that he might know the true listener when they arose." He shook his head. "But it cannot be. Delphine is surely not truly listener, not someone outside the Brotherhood, no. How do I know Delphine can be trusted and did not torture the words out of a speaker years before?" "You don't," said Delphine. She was not out of this just yet, but something was telling her things had edged just that little bit in her favor. "Just as even if you release me now, I won't be able to trust that you won't decide to stab me as I sleep just because you can. But if you come to Vollenruud with me, we can see if this contact is really there, and what he wants. If it's a genuine contract, will you believe me then?" "If," Cicero repeated. Such a big word for one so little. However, he was smiling a little at the prospect of an actual contract. "Very well, Cicero shall release Delphine and check on Mother, and tomorrow we will go to Vollenruud to meet the contact. If the contract is genuine, Cicero shall believe Delphine and claim her as listener. But if there is no contact, or if it is a setup, Cicero shall kill Delphine before she even knows he has drawn a blade." "Done," Delphine gasped, as Cicero kept his word and cut her free. Inwardly, she could only shiver. Her future had just turned on its head, and there was no road from here on that could possibly end well. "Vollenruud is cold," Cicero muttered to himself. "Cicero does not like it, no. Didn't you spend a year hiding out in Dawnstar?" Delphine asked. "Wasn't that cold too?" "Does not count," said Cicero, dancing on one spot to keep the cold at bay. "We were in the sanctuary. It was underground. Warm. Not freezing like this. All of northeast Skyrim's like this," Delphine said, approaching the stone ruins that loomed ahead in the darkness. "Divines help you if you have to see a contract through in Winterhold. Cicero misses Cyrodiil," Cicero muttered. "Cicero misses a lot of things. Sanctuary, family, not being keeper, being able to kill. Cicero wishes he'd never come here to cold, frozen Skyrim." He glared at Delphine, as if this was entirely her fault. "Come on, we're nearly there," said Delphine, flinching away from the look in his eyes. Barely hours ago, he'd had a knife to her throat, and all day on the road, she'd caught him glaring at her, fingering his daggers. Hard to tell exactly what was going through his mind, but he was clearly resentful at this whole expedition, regretting keeping her alive. Perhaps, but something had stayed his hand, and for that, Delphine could only be grateful. She just hoped that whatever dark power had influenced the jester kept on doing so. This place was far too isolated for her liking, and she wasn't entirely sure she'd win a fight with Cicero, even free and armed to start with. She led Cicero into the ruins and proceeded down a tunnel to a wide cavern with several passages leading off it. There was no one there. "No contact," said Cicero, reaching for a dagger. Cicero said what he would do if there was no contact. "Wait," Delphine cried. "Maybe he's in one of these side passages." Cicero sheathed his dagger. "Pick one then, maybe listener." Swallowing nervously, and with a hand on her own sword, Delphine looked around, ruled out the big one straight ahead, that just led into one room with a locked gate at the end, and settled on the first one on the left. "That one. We'll try that one first." Luck, or something else, was with her. It led into one small dead-end cavern, and in it was an Imperial man in expensive-looking clothes and a hulking bodyguard dressed in Imperial Army uniform. Behind them was their campsite and a circle of burnt-out candles surrounding the remains of some luckless bandit. Delphine felt a shiver run down her spine, and yet she hadn't been so pleased to see anyone in her life. "This is happening. This is really happening. I'm about to sign up to a Dark Brotherhood contract. Motier," she said. "You're Amand, Motier." The Imperial raised both eyebrows, clearly impressed. "Well, by the 8, that black sacrament actually worked." Delphine could hear a sharp intake of breath from Cicero. A good sign. She stepped forward. "Time to act like a listener should. The Night Mother has heard your plea, Amand Motier, and the Dark Brotherhood has answered. Tell me, who has crossed you? Who do you wish sent to the void?" Damn, she was good at this. "It's nothing personal," Motier began. You have to believe that. But this man needs to die, and you are the only ones with the skills to pull it off. Your reasons for the contract are your own, Delphine reassured him. The Brotherhood asks no questions regarding why. All we need to know is who and how much. How? You don't need me to tell you how to kill someone, surely, said Motier. He caught the exasperation in Delphine's eyes. Forgive me, I've never done this before. Well, that would be both of us. Sometimes the client has preferences regarding how the kill is carried out, time, place, method, how the body is found and who by, said Delphine patiently. Do any apply here? Is there a particular message you wish this kill to send? Motier laughed, suddenly quite cheerful. Oh, my dear assassin, as far as messages go, the kill will do that all by itself. As long as the job is done, I am quite content. However, this will be a difficult target, and to carry it out, you will need to kill more than one person. Currently, the target is based in the Imperial City, but you'll never get to him there. It would be suicide to try. No, he must be lured here, to Skyrim. And while the war has made that difficult, nevertheless I believe there is still a way. Here, I've put the details in a letter for your leader. Astrid, I believe her name is. I'll see it reaches the listener personally, said Delphine, her lips thinning. More than one person? Who on earth is he trying to murder? I will need to know the name of the target and how much the pay will be. A considerable sum is yours on fulfillment of the contract, Motier promised. 20,000 septims shall be yours once the target is dead, and believe me, I will know when they are. All of Tamriel shall know when they are. Again, that nervous laugh. Delphine turned to stare at Cicero. That was a huge sum. Surely most contracts were less than that. The Dark Brotherhood were known to kill on behalf of the rich and powerful, but not only them. That had to be considerably more than the going rate, and the stunned look on Cicero's face confirmed it. That's a lot of septims, Delphine finally managed to say. Who in Nirn do you want dead? Motier took a deep breath. The Emperor of Tamriel, Titus Mede II. Delphine felt the world spin as the blood drained from her face. Hastily grabbing Cicero's arm to stop herself fainting entirely, she heard herself saying, seemingly on autopilot, "You are surely joking." Motier shook his head. "No joke, assassin. I want the Emperor dead. I know the Brotherhood has had its setbacks in recent years, but you're still the Brotherhood. Can you do it?" "Prove you're genuine," said Delphine. "Prove this is no fool's errand. My organization has little patience with time wasters. Certainly we will be wanting cash up front." "I thought you might," said Motier, nodding in approval. "Very well, take this. Get it appraised. It should be worth sufficient coin to convince you this is genuine. Sell it or use it as collateral to raise funds. Anything you get for it is yours, in addition to the 20,000 septims. He handed her an amulet, and Delphine could tell at one glance that it was expensive. To hand over something like this without batting an eyelid, this had to be genuine. "My associate and I will take these back to our sanctuary and discuss this." "Opportunity," said Delphine, choosing her words carefully. "Thank you for your time. We will be in touch. Where can we reach you to discuss this further?" "Whiterun," said Motier. "We'll be taking a room at the Bannered Mare. Send any correspondence there, although I trust I can rely on you not to put too much in writing." "I know the value of discretion," Delphine promised. "We'll be in touch if we decide to take this one. I'll send you details of a dead drop where you can reach us at need." A good thing Delphine had been at this sort of thing for years, and already had suitable arrangements in place, really. "Very good," Motier nodded. "I will await your leader's response." "Good day, assassin." Delphine nodded in response and turned, walking quickly, arm in arm with Cicero before her legs actually gave out. From the look of him, Cicero wasn't looking too good either. Together, they made it out of the ruins and actually managed to get a good half-hour away before Delphine finally collapsed under a tree. Cicero followed suit, falling to his knees at her side, resting his head on her shoulder, one arm draping itself around her waist. It was an oddly intimate gesture, even more so as the ever-present jester hat slipped to one side, and Cicero irritably pulled it off and pocketed it, before leaning into her again, bareheaded now. His eyes were closed, no sign of madness visible for once. Delphine found herself smiling. It looked like he was hers again, my listener. he whispered, in tones verging on reverence. Delphine wasn't sure what disturbed her more, the obsessed adoration or the fact she was starting to like it. "So you believe me now?" she said. Cicero nodded. "Cicero believes," said Cicero. "Delphine knows many people, has many strings she could pull, but a contract against the Emperor himself? No, not even you could have arranged that." Opening his eyes, he gazed up at her, his face alive with worship. "You are listener. After so long in silence, the mother has spoken at last. And with such a contract, this will go down in Dark Brotherhood history. You will go down in Dark Brotherhood history." "I'm not even a member," Delphine whispered. "I don't even know much of the Dark Brotherhood history. And now, I'm listener with a contract to kill an emperor. Could the Brotherhood at its height have done this?" "Cicero does not know. Cicero and Delphine will never know," said Cicero firmly. "But Cicero will tell you what he knows, listener Delphine the Blade. Cicero will also tell you this. When the Brotherhood was at its height, the Emperor was guarded by blades. Blades like you. Now he is not, and the blades are after him instead. Cicero does not think this is coincidence, and Cicero believes we can do this. If Delphine has survived the Thalmor all these years, she can get past the Penitus Oculatus, especially if she once did their job." "Perhaps," Delphine murmured. "Perhaps. You'll help though, right? I mean, this is a lot of work, and you're the real assassin. Be ashamed to not have you slit a few throats, eh?" Cicero's eyes lit up. "Listener," he cried, "you would send faithful Cicero to kill people? Oh, my listener, thank you, thank you." He reached for her hand, and for one moment, Delphine thought he was going to kiss it, but he seemed to hesitate and settled for just squeezing it. Delphine couldn't tell if it was relief or disappointment she was feeling. "Don't get carried away, Cicero. There's something else," said Delphine. Cicero went still, watching her curiously. "What is it, my listener?" he asked casually, but his posture gave away the tension he was feeling. "I'm still a blade, Cicero," said Delphine. "Once we were Imperial bodyguards, yes, but we began as dragon slayers. We were set up to find dragonborns and guide and protect them. We found the first Riemann Cyrodiil and later Talos and his septim heirs, and that's how we became the Imperial bodyguards. We stayed that way even after the septims were wiped out, even though the Mede dynasty don't have the dragon blood, right up until the Great War, and Titus Mede II disbanded us to appease the Thalmor." Her eyes hardened. "They hunted us down like beasts, Cicero. Friends, comrades, all slaughtered by the damn Thalmor, and the Empire did nothing. Nothing. So in case you were wondering, no, I don't have any particular ethical problems over killing him. I'm not his bodyguard anymore, and he's no Dragonborn. You are. And that means I'm sworn to guard and protect you. Me?" Cicero shook his head, sitting up and backing away, alarmed. No, Cicero does not deserve that. Cicero serves Delphine the listener. She does not take orders from him. Cicero is a good and loyal dark brother. He keeps to the tenets. He will obey Delphine to the death. Delphine cannot serve Cicero. He looked distraught at the mere idea. Delphine could only smile. He really was adorable when he was swearing undying allegiance. She'd have to engineer this scenario more often. "Not what I said," Delphine purred. "Cicero, dragons are coming back and you're Dragonborn. You're going to need to kill them, and skilled as you are, you'll need help. I'll offer you that help as Dragonborn, and in return, you obey me as listener. As part of that, much of the work we do won't be as part of a Brotherhood contract. It'll be research into why and how dragons are coming back, and how to stop it. Are you all right with doing that as well? It'll be dangerous, but you've killed dragons alone. I think you're up to it. But at least until we can get a few recruits and a proper headquarters and some actual money, it's going to take time away from our contract. I just don't want you to doubt my commitment, because I'm not spending all my waking hours plotting murder and assassination." Cicero, to her surprise, actually smiled. "Is that all? Dear listener, have no fear. This is a big contract we have been given, yes, but at no point in Dark Brotherhood history has it ever been the case that we only have one contract going on at a time, or that the listener cannot multitask. So we hunt dragons in between assassinating emperors. Simply tell your Cicero where the nearest dragon is to be found, and he shall bring it down for you." Delphine, watching over his shoulder where trees gave way to tundra, reached for her weapons and staggered to her feet. "Get your bow, Cicero," said Delphine, taking careful aim with her dwarven arrows as a dark shadow swept over them and the wind raced through the trees. One just showed up.